March 17th, 2012, the day British football almost witnessed the greatest on-field tragedy in the history of the game. When Spurs and Bolton faced off in the FA Cup that year, Fabrice Muamba wasn't a name that exactly stood out or grabbed the headlines, but in a horrific turn of events, he was the only name the fans could think of. The game got off to a surprise. 6 minutes in, Bolton had taken the lead through a Gareth Bale own goal. 5 minutes later, though, they equalized, and from that moment on, it was tense. See, the Spurs were the favorites to win the game, but Bolton had pulled off a miracle surprise to reach the quarterfinal stage that year, and a big part of that was how good Fabrice Muamba had been. Both teams continued to battle it, and for the next 30 minutes, the game was still locked at 1-1. But all of that changed in the 41st minute when Fabrice Muamba was a few seconds away from death. The crowd didn't know what had just happened, and neither did the whole world. He suddenly collapsed. Muamba had entered another race. He wasn't fighting for a place in the FA Cup semi-final anymore. He was fighting to save his life. 6:13 p.m. That's when it happened. From the way his teammates looked on, you could tell the situation was serious, and still, it felt like this one wasn't over. If anyone wasn't giving up, it just had to be Fabrice, especially considering all he had faced growing up. Fabrice Muamba was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but by 1994, he and his parents had to leave. By 1999, the move became permanent, and growing up in East London, Fabrice began his career at Arsenal before signing for Bolton Wanderers, but this doesn't mean his career was anything straightforward. Before his accident at White Hart Lane, his life should have ended a long time ago. He had a season-long loan at Birmingham City before Bolton made the move for him permanent in his first season. Muamba was so good that he was named the new player of the season. See guys, it's important to understand the man and where he's coming from. Because his disaster at White Hart Lane that evening wasn't just threatening his career, it was ruining his life too. Girls threw themselves at me and I thought I was Playboy. I turned into a womanizing playboy, almost wrecking my relationship with my future wife by dating a string of other women. Muamba at the time was experiencing the high life. He was now on a $10,000 weekly salary at Bolton, and because of that, he thought he could get away with anything. I admit that the fame and money went into my head. I started going out with 2 nightclubs in Birmingham, and because it was a small city, it soon got around that we were lads who just enjoyed a good time. Lucky for Muamba though, he met his wife Shauna, and even though he lied to her at first about his name being Marcus aged 24, he came clean to her, and together with his family gave him a new purpose in life to become the best version of a footballer and a dad to his family and kids. But on that fateful day in 2012, nothing was working. Because going back to the incident, just looking at him on the pitch like that, Fabrice was gone. No one would have expected such a situation to happen in the game, and because of that, the medical team was stunned. When Fabrice collapsed, the crowd did everything to get him back up. They chanted his name, hoping for a miracle, but even that didn't work. He was no longer conscious, and the referee, Howard Webb, just like everyone else in the stadium from teammates to staff, members, fans, and coaches, didn't know what to do. The treatment continued for Muamba, but it still wasn't working. And at this point, everyone feared the worst. English football had never seen anything like this, a key part of Bolton's midfield, but that wasn't the case anymore. Because in that pitch, Fabrice was a man struggling for his life. And it just seemed like the struggle was over. The medical team at White Hart Lane had that look in their faces like they'd given up already. He had gone down, but it's important to know what happened to Fabrice when he fell. Watch the video again. Fabrice Muamba had suffered a cardiac arrest. Some people thought it was a heart attack, but this was different. A cardiac attack can affect anyone, and in Muamba's case, his heart suddenly stopped pumping blood properly. To save his life, the medical team knew what they needed to do. CPR was immediately required, and they acted quickly. This was now a race against time. Every second counted, but Fabrice was a lucky man. It's almost as if something divine knew this was going to happen and had people in the right places ready to help him. Dr. Andrew Daner, a cardiologist who worked at the London Chest Hospital, Daner wasn't at the game on official duty. He was there to watch the game with his brothers. But as soon as he saw what had happened to Fabrice, he knew he needed to immediately get into action. When Daner got to the pitch, he could see the CPR going on, and the next stage was ready. To save Muamba's life, they needed a special device, the defibrillator. Fabrice was given 15 defibrillator shocks in total, 2 on the pitch, 1 in the tunnel, and 12 in the ambulance. The CPR they had given to him previously was okay, but at this point, the case had become critical. He was a few seconds away from dying. They needed to jolt his heart and jump-start it. A 300 boil electric shock was required, and after doing this, he was on his way to the hospital, but the story was far from finished. I'll get into it in a bit, but first, some of you watching this tragic incident that happened to Fabrice Muamba still haven't subscribed to Total Footy yet. Clicking that button goes a long way in helping the channel grow. Okay, back to Muamba now, and on the pitch, as soon as he was taken off, Howard Webb had a difficult decision to make. Bolton's chairman Phil Gartside came down to the pitch, and he made his feelings clear. There was no way this match could continue, and Webb agreed. The game was called off, but the action was far from over because at the hospital, a battle was still going on. Fabrice Muamba and the medical team at the London Chest Hospital on one side, against his life on the other. Initially, they were supposed to go to the hospital in North Middlesex. But with Andrew Diener there, he knew Muamba needed urgent medical attention from the best place possible. And so, he made the option of going to the London Chest Hospital on Bethnal Green. Almost 8 miles away from the stadium, but getting there was the right thing, because the medical staff at Bethnal Green had been listening to what was going on, and as soon as they saw the ambulance arrive with Muamba in it, they were ready for action. They got to the hospital at 19:01, and for the next 30 minutes, it was an intense battle to save his life. The hospital had the necessary equipment to try their best, but even at that, they couldn't guarantee anything. See guys? This was a scary day not just for Bolton fans, but for English football in general. The last time they'd seen something a bit similar to this was back in 2005, when Peter Cech had that horrific head injury with Stephen Hunt at Reading. He survived it, but couldn't remember a thing. In Cech's case, it was a result of a collision with Hunt, but in Muamba's incident, no one touched him. He fell on his own to the ground, which was worse. The doctors tried everything when questions became too much, Bolton put out a statement. They confirmed what the world already knew. Muamba was at the hospital fighting for his life, and you can just imagine what must have been happening to his family and his wife watching. But you see guys, some things are just meant to be. Guess it wasn't his time to leave yet, because in a shocking turn of events, the miracle happened. By 1931, 30 minutes after they'd brought him into the hospital, the medical staff on ground couldn't believe what they had just seen. Muamba was alive. He had regained his consciousness and could even recognize his wife Shauna and his son Joshua. When asked about it years later, Muamba believes the only reason he survived was because a divine force had saved him from the dead. Shauna remained at my bedside and prayed. God awakened me. I sat up in bed and started speaking in an unknown language. Shauna asked me what I was speaking, and I said I was speaking a heavenly language. I had a divine visitation. All that mattered at this point now was that he was alive. See, Muamba was officially dead for 78 minutes. His heart had stopped for 78 minutes, and in that period, he was hanging on to the beat efforts of the doctors and medical staff on ground. Muamba continued to improve speedily after that, and by the following Tuesday, the man had even stated that he was fine, but the doctors and medical staff continued to watch him and assess him. Muamba knew he had just been given a second chance at life, from that guy who used to be a playboy to a footballer and a family man. His second shot now made him realize the most important thing to him, something that made even football come in second, his family. And on August 15, 2012, Muamba announced his retirement from the game. Initially, he wanted to continue, and when he did get back to playing football, he had a pacemaker fitted on his road to recovery, but after getting advice from a specialist in Belgium, Muamba knew the best thing to do was retire and focus on his family, and that's what he did. These days, he's now involved in raising awareness for people to know how to use CPR, because Muamba knows this saved his life. Till now, it remains one of the biggest miracles football has ever seen, and the actions of the medical staff that day became heroic. At 23, Muamba retired, and Bolton later got relegated that season, but the moment he came back to life, that was their biggest result of the season and possibly in the club's history. I know you enjoyed this video, and if you'll love to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button to Total Footy for more.